Good morning, everyone. Aaron Killian here for Historic America. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I put up a post on the journal called In Search of Peter Richards, and that post was concerned with pictures that I found of the 34th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, and that was the regiment that my Civil War ancestor, Peter Richards, fought in. And I wanted to follow up on that post by sharing with you some other discoveries that I made about Peter Richards. And there were discoveries that were brought to me by my grandmother, who's visiting us for Thanksgiving this year, and she brought with her some old documents that have to do with Peter Richards and his service during the Civil War, and they're sort of like family heirlooms that have now been passed down to me, which is really cool. But I thought I'd share with you some of these documents because they're fascinating. So the first two, these are Furlough Papers. Peter Richards served from Irving, Massachusetts. That's where he came from. And while he was stationed in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, Harper's Ferry, big crossroads of the Civil War, right? He was given leave to go on furlough a couple of times during 1862. And furlough, just in layman's terms, is when you're given permission to go and visit home with the expectation that you'll return back to your regiment within a specified period of time. And so that's what these documents are. You probably can't see the writing on the as video watchers, but I can here. So yeah, the bearer hereof, Peter Richards. Let's see, age 31 years, 5 feet 8.5 inches high, light complexion, blue eyes, light hair. The profession of a farmer, and then it says. Then it gives the information about he's allowed to be absent from this date to this date, and then he needs to be returned by the final date or be considered a deserter. These are neat also because they sort of give you an idea of what he looked like too. So now we know how tall he was and what his eye color was, which is fascinating. Some other things here. Oh, another story about Peter Richards is that he dies after the war of some type of lung disease, and his wife Julia maintains that he contracted whatever this disease was during his service in the Civil War, that he first became sick with it while he was stationed at Harper's Ferry, and she actually went down to Harper's Ferry to nurse him back to health. And then after the war, when he passes on, she starts writing a series of letters to the federal government and state authorities in Massachusetts in order to get a pension for herself. And that's what a lot of these documents are that my grandmother brought back. They're concerned with Julia Richards pursuing this pension. And so this is, the document that outlines what exactly her claim is. And then what else? Oh, then we have a letter right here that was written by Julia Richards asking for this pension and explaining why she needs it. So listen to this. So, "Dear Sir, this is quite a task for me. My husband was sick at Harper's Ferry with the lung fever, which left him with a bad cough and hung in him until his death. He died from diseases of the lungs. His disease was caused by asphyxia. I went to Harper's Ferry and nursed him while he was sick. I am in need of the pension that I have been trying for since his death, as I am not able to do hard work and my limbs are in very bad shape, that it is hard for me to get around." Kind of sad for Miss Julia. What else? Oh, another interesting thing about Peter Richards is that he was actually an immigrant. He came to the United States and Massachusetts by way of Canada, and he didn't become a citizen of the United States until 1868. So while he was fighting for the Union, he was still a Canadian citizen. But when he becomes a citizen in 1868, you have to get a certificate of citizenship, and this is what that is. This is Peter Richards' certificate of citizenship, which is fascinating. And then what else? Oh, Julia Richards was evidently successful in getting this pension, this $8 a month pension, and this is that document that certifies that she is to receive this $8 a month from the government of the United States of America. And then some more Peter Richards related items. These are passes that would have allowed Peter Richards to go into town or something like that, you know, to leave the camp and then travel beyond the lines to you know, do whatever he needed to do for the day, right? So it's not about furlough. He wasn't able to go all the way back to Massachusetts, but, you know, September 15th, 1863, guards and patrols will please pass Peter Richards of Company F of the 34th Massachusetts from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And that's what all these guys are. So these are the hall passes that Peter Richard would have used in order to get away from camp for a little while. And then finally, this is neat. These are Peter Richards' discharge papers. Once he completed his service, he was discharged from the Army in June of 1865. War is over by this point. And this paper is his discharge. And then on the back, right here, this lists all the engagements that Peter Richards fought in during his service. So we've got Newmarket and Winchester and Martinsburg and all sorts of engagements having to do with the Shenandoah Valley, engagements in the Shenandoah Valley. So fascinating. All these really interesting documents having to do with my ancestor Peter Richards that he would have held in his hand, or that his wife would have held in her hand while they were while either he was in service or she was trying to get this important pension for herself. And just a really interesting part of not only national history but of my family's history, and it's cool to have them. So I want to thank my grandmother Joanne for bringing them to me.